Oh, Tezlyn joined. T, what's up?
Hey.
Miss Figaro Rizzo.
Hey.
We live, you guys.
All right.
Let's get this thing cracking.
Hello, everybody.
So
Hey
we're going to do introductions and introductions. Just talk about some of the things that we all are doing around the country, because we know ain't nobody coming to save us but us. We can't depend on nobody else no more.
That's
you know? Yeah. And once we get that straight, we're going to be all right. Anyway, my name is Andre Taylor. I always try to say this for the streets. People know me as Gorgeous Dre from the movie American Pimp back in the 90s. I just want to put that out there just to let people know that you ain't got to be defined by your past, that you can overcome your past. And, you know, my past doesn't reclaim me. So, you know, for the last 20 years, you know, I've been lecturing at universities and teaching at treatment centers. And to make a long story short, as I was doing all that, speaking on TV, Montel, TBN, and other places, my little brother got shot by the police in 2016. That brought me into Seattle, Washington. And I started my organization, Not This Time. And what people don't know, it was shocking to them because Washington State is supposed to be one of the most progressive states in the nation, is that Washington State actually had the worst law on police accountability in the nation. Because here, in order for us to charge a police officer, we had to find out whether he had malice or not. You know, we couldn't charge him if he didn't have malice. And malice is impossible because malice is like what he was thinking in his mind at the time. And so over 30 years, not one police officer has ever been convicted or charged of a crime. Well, one has been charged because of that malice. And no other state had that language in the law. So my organization partnered with Native tribes, Asian Pacific Islanders, Latino organizations, unions, politicians, just all over the state to amass the greatest people of color movement in the history of Washington State. And we now are the first and only state with a police accountability law led by my organization, Not This Time. So just putting it out there, you know, we got a lot more work to do because we're trying to send this blueprint of how we did it around the country. One more last thing. When we won that police accountability, you know, that gives you a lot of political and social capital. So I went to the mayor of Seattle and told her I want to do something called Conversations with the Streets that focuses on my community, where I can bring leaders and professionals from all over the country to speak to the community. And these three women have graced the platform and have been there and showed up. And I appreciate every single one of them. Their voices are powerful. I'm honored to be right here with them. And I'll let Tamika go, then Megan, and then Tezlyn.
Oh, I came here today to listen to these other folks speak because I'm getting ready to learn, and it's going to be some blessings from Tezlyn in a minute, and Andre finna school us, and Megan is going to put us on. So I did not come to talk a lot. I'm happy to be among this incredible group, though, and I hope people are watching, because the power of what will happen in the next hour or so that we're on this session is probably the most information that people who are not actively engaged in the movement every day will get in an entire month, maybe an entire year. I know about the super brilliance of all of you. And I don't know how I got invited. I'm happy to be a part of it, but I really wanted to come and present some of the things that are happening across the country that I'm involved in, how my organization, Until Freedom, you know that my son, who you had on and have worked with, and my son is a great fan of Andre Taylor's. He is one of my co-founders of Until Freedom, along with Linda Sarsour and attorney Angelo Pinto. And we've been trying to keep our boots on the ground in terms of all the different movements that are popping up around this country. And it's unfortunate that these movements are actually attempting to address literally the murder and slaughter of Black folks. Like, it's not like we're just doing some great stuff that feels good and, you know, movements around better education, movements around, you know, safer streets. No, we're talking about literal murders, where people are walking free for 2 and 3 months before it even gets discussed, before the general public even knows what happened. Families who are waiting for just some information about how their loved one has been killed. And that's happening because, as far as this country is concerned, the Black and brown, and particularly the Black man and woman, are literally treated as animals. In fact, animals are treated better than us. And so we don't have the right, nor do we have the luxury of staying home or sitting silent, even in COVID-19, even with the quarantine. We still have to fight, whether that be digitally, physically, financially, we still have to fight. And so I'm just happy to be here to bring that part of the conversation into the mix. And I just want to say that I love all of you, and I'm just humbled to be a part of this convo.
Thank you so much, Tamika, for starting us off. And it is an honor to be here in the midst of greatness, because that is truly what we are. We were born in greatness. And so it is my pleasure. I am Megan McGlover and Andre Taylor. There are not enough words to say how much you have done, how much you have sacrificed, and how much you discipline your life in order to fulfill your calling and your purpose, and thus have put together such an incredible moment in time. So that will never be repeated again, because there's only now. And so Tezlyn as well, I appreciate to be here in this moment. I am here to simply bring accountability. I believe that we as a people have got to make sure that we are accountable for the things in which we do and how we contribute to our lack and contribute to the things that happen to us. We are not victims. We are more in charge of the things that happen to us than we are not. Nat Turner said in a very famous quote, I mean, it wasn't quotable at the time, but Nat Turner said that it had 1,000 people. How many of you are willing to do anything that it takes in order to get us free? And 900 of them stood forward or came forward. And he said, the other 100 of them that did not come forward need to be killed. I'm not saying let's kill everybody, but I am saying that we must make sure that we separate ourselves from those who are not willing, because gravity says that what is heavier falls down much easier, and that will pull us down. It will pull us down. And so we have to have accountability. We cannot continue to allow us to be the point of conversation whenever someone is shot and killed. Then they can say, well, he was a gang member, he was this and he was that. We have to be able to have laws in place. Well, excuse me, let me start over. We have to be able to have people in place, congressmen, mayors, governors, whether we have to pay them or not, so that we can have these laws changed, so that, just like Mayor Villaraigosa in Los Angeles changed a plethora of laws so that Mexicans, particularly illegal aliens, if you will, were not profiled by the police. That was a law that was put in place by him because he wanted to make sure that his people were safe. So we have to make sure that we are doing, and I mean behavior, because Dr. Kressling talked about how, God bless her soul, she talked about how it is the behavior and the discipline of the behavior that brings about power. And so that is the accountability. We cannot continue to just complain, but we have to literally change our behavior. And if we cannot change our thoughts, we can then change our behavior, which psychology says will eventually change our thoughts, because what you actually do can change your mind. And if you cannot change the negative narrative in your mind, if you cannot change white privilege all the time, if you can actually change the behavior in your mind, then you can, if you can change the behavior in your actions, then you can change the behavior in your mind. And that is what I want us to do. I want us to be accountable for our behavior, because that is what can control the narrative. We cannot continue to just allow what has happened to continue to happen. And law of attraction says like attracts like. So at what point are we going to be able to police ourselves, to govern ourselves, one household at a time? That's what I hear.
Amen. You don't hear a lot about self-responsibility, Megan. So thank you so much for bringing that conversation to the dialogue. A lot of times that type of talk is limited to one party or the other, more conservative and or less liberal. And I think that's important for us to have this conversation in this space. First of all, ladies, I appreciate being here with you, among you. I know your work. I know what you do. I'm like Tamika, I'm humbled to even be a part of this. And thank you, Andre, once again, for providing a platform for women. There's been a lot of platforms here lately with the Zoom meetings, and it's been a lot of men, and our brothers have been speaking, which they should. I don't think brothers have an opportunity to speak enough, but there is always the silencing of women. You know, as we look at Malcolm X just this week, as we celebrated his birthday, when he said that the most disrespected, the most unprotected, the most neglected person in America is the Black woman. It is always nice to be in the company of other strong Black women, and more importantly, a man that appreciates the strength and the power of the Black woman. We do not hear that often enough. I will echo the same thing that Tamika said, that I am here to listen and learn as well. But also what I try to do is to bring accountability in the political space. I love what you said, Megan, when you said, at some point, we just got to leave people behind. When we had our conversation with the streets, you know, I talked about Moses, and maybe Moses was all right with going 40 years and waiting on a generation to die, but I'm from the generation where we moving on over. The Joshua generation to say either you coming when I honk the horn the first time or you're not. We have got to get to the place where Juneteenth is no longer acceptable. Every year it should be a revolution on Juneteenth. We should not be so easy to celebrate the fact that others have been free and it took us 2 years to figure it out. I appreciate the Harriet Tubman spirits of the world that says, I'm going to come back and get you. But I just want to make it clear that I'm not Harriet Tubman. Either you're going to be ready when we honk the horn the first time or you're not. Nobody's going to take a chance and get shot coming back to look for your ass. Can I be a little bit more clear? I know we're in the spirit. Can I be just a little bit more?
Please.
Hallelujah.
You know, I go from bishop to bishop.
Hallelujah.
When I get in Andre's presence every now and then, I go from bishop to bishop Don Juan. So you just got to keep up with me. I'll quote a little bit of scripture because that's all I know how to do. Bootleg preacher. So at some point we got to be clear. And again, I appreciate Harriet. Somebody got to go back and get her. Maybe Tamika, maybe my sister will. But when it comes to Tezlyn, I'm not coming to get you, because see, when I turn around to come get you, that means I'm going to take the chance of getting shot and killed and maimed and all the rest of that. At some point, we have to challenge people that either you're in or you're out. You're for or against. You're with us or you're not. Let's look at our brother Charlemagne today that has the whole internet on fire. I mean, the whole, shout out to Charlemagne. He got 5 trends going at one time. and what you see with this, Tamika, is you see the difference between the help and the heroes. Now, what do I mean by the help? The help means that every time somebody makes a fumble, every time that, and this don't have nothing to do with supporting Trump. So let's get past that. Don't nobody support Trump.
Stop saying that.
Yeah, that's it.
Please make them stop that.
Yeah, please.
That make me don't want to vote.
That's right. That's
when
right.
They say that. Don't try to trick me into thinking that because I'm asking you for something.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so when you look at the fact that you have the help rushing in to once again make excuses for what we all heard. One of the trends says what Joe Biden said. That's literally the trend. That means it is a trend of folks out there telling us what we all heard our lying ears. See, I heard what I heard and you said what you said. Now, whether you slipped up and fumbled or meant to say something different, at some point we got to deal with people and what they say and hold them accountable for it. And us asking for our demand, asking for our respect, asking for accountability from the leaders that claim they represent us. Black women love bragging about how we hold the Democrat Party down. We love talking about, maybe Andre understands this from his old back in the day, they call it the bottom chick. See, it's something about the bottom chick that love talking about how she 10 toes down. But somebody, maybe Drake can help him with this. Maybe he can train folks on the power of the bottom chick. See, if the bottom chick don't make a move, that means don't nobody move.
Come on.
If we're gonna be in this position, can you help him with it, Andre? Can you go back? Can you put your gators on and help him with it? See, once the bottom chick makes a decision, that means ain't nobody moving. So if Black women are going to hold the line, that means hold the line with a consequence. See, a demand don't mean nothing without a consequence. You can continue to tell that man, hey, you can't come by at 2 o'clock in the morning, but as long as you tell him you can come by at 2 o'clock in the morning and have your way, he's gonna have his way. It only changes until you say you either on this side or the other side. You either with me or you not with me. Rest in peace, Betty Wright. I love Betty Wright. She was one of my favorite blues singers. But she said having a piece of man is better than no man at all. But see, I disagree with that because this generation want all the man. I want all the man, all the money, all the life insurance policy, all the paperwork. I want to put it on paper. So what I preach about and here why I'm in this space today, because I can go on and on, as you know, somebody got to shut me up. But at some point, I just want to talk about how the side chick mentality, the mistress mentality, the get the scraps mentality in politics has got to be over. I love how we all advocate differently. Tamika doesn't do the way I do necessarily. We have a lot of similarities. Angela Rye may do something different. Vicky Dillard, shout out to her. She may do something different. We all move in our own ways, but if we put the collective pressure, collective pressure to make these folks answer questions, no matter if it's Tamika asking, Tezlyn asking, Vicky asking, Angela Wright, we got to get to the point to understand that we are providing collective pressure, whether it's Charlemagne, whether it's Diddy, whether it's Killer Mike, whoever it is, the collective pressure must continue to keep doing the pressure. And that means it requires internal and external pressure.
That's
People
right.
don't like that I'm on Fox News. But see, I got to go over there and tell your enemy what you're doing. Because see, I'm from these streets and I know that once I tell your enemy what you're doing, it's going to make you tighten up.
That's right.
Once I tell your enemy where you hold your weapons and how weak you are and where you got everything here, where the stash is, it make you relocate your weapons and your tools. It makes them tighten up. Because see, Biden is interested in the Republican voter, in the independent voter. He already said he got the Black folks on lock. So when I go tell those independents and those Republicans, hey, Black people said we want a Black agenda, we want symbolism, we want
that's right.
Nepotism, we want it all. We want it all across the board. We want the symbolism, we want the agenda, we want it across the board. When you go tell them folks that, see, then they say, well, hey, maybe all Black people are not on board the way they say they're on board. And then it makes them correct themselves, correct? That's why Joe Biden had to release that apology today to somebody called Charlemagne the God. And the reason why his name is the God, not because he just chose that, but because we are in 2020 where we have perfect discernment vision. See, 2020 about seeing something.
Jump in when you want, ladies. Jump in when you want.
No. Why would we?
I'm gonna
As I eat my popcorn.
2020 is about discernment, clear, perfect vision to expose what we have not seen before, what we see has not always been what we thought we were looking at. I'm gonna yield the flow.
Why would we
I'm about to lose my shit.
stop the preacher from preaching?
He know I can go on.
I I actually was finna go run downstairs.
Right, you got to run.
My spirit, no,
When the preacher's speaking, you got to run.
I'm done with this shit. I'm done.
Yeah. But you know what? We are going back to get out. You do it every day, Tezlyn. Even though you say you ain't going back to get them.
I do be going back, don't I?
I said, oh God, we go back to get them.
We can't
and you the bottom chick and the side chick. You all those things all at once, because they tell you, you know, they say, well, I'm sorry. We say, okay, we take the Negro back again. That's what we do.
We do that.
That's just the way it is when it comes to our people.
That's right.
How we end up doing that with a bunch of white men, I can't even get into that today. That I didn't know that was what we was going to talk about, but please don't ask me, Andre, to talk today about Joe Biden, because I realize that I'm responsible for people who actually respect what I say, even if it's 3 people, even if it's just my son. They listen. And what I have to say is so problematic, you know, to what we need to accomplish, because we have to be clear, we must get rid of Donald Trump as the president of the United States. When I watched that man yesterday stand up there and say, I positively tested negative, I just can't have him as my president. It's too much for my pressure.
Okay, now wait. First, Tamika, wait. Okay, first of all, Tezlyn, I'm gonna send my offering to you.
Right. Envelope. You got a church envelope?
Yeah. Do you have some envelopes? Because the doors of the church is open, and I want to be an elder in the house of God. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay, I'm gonna send my offering. Okay, but I want to make sure that the people all over the world know what it is that we're talking about. So Joe Biden said in a quote, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, you ain't black. Mm-hmm. So let's just let everybody know what it was that Joe Biden said. Now, the audacity that allowed him to say something like that was based on what Puff Daddy, and I'm only saying Puff Daddy because he said it. I don't necessarily, I don't ascribe to everything that Puff Daddy does, so forth and so on. But Puff Daddy said recently before Andre Harrell, which was an icon in the music, before Andre Harrell, thank you so much, passed away, he did a video and he said, our vote is no longer free. Talking about black people. Our vote is no longer free. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, we have some demands. And so what Joe Biden has done, unfortunately for him, is he has the audacity to think and assume that black people are automatically going to go the Democratic way. But if you look at Democrats and what the Democratic government has done to black people, not for, but to black people, you would be astonished. The 3-strike law, no child left behind. There is a lot of things that have been done. So I think that what Tezlyn is saying is very important. You now, at this point in 2020 vision, you need to look and really study and not just go along with the status quo, but you need to study that when all of the political parties started, black people actually were Republican. And so we have kind of miraged into democraticism, if you will. And so we need to really look at what has been done for us and what has been done for us, which actually has hurt us. And so Joe Biden, with what he said, in my personal opinion, was just a great goal for him to say something like that, because the assumption is that regardless of what you do to me, whether you have raped me, whether you have slaughtered me, I will continue to go back to you. Whether you had kidnapped me, there's a syndrome, that's a psychological syndrome, to feel love towards the aggressor. There are people who have been raped and kidnapped, And they now love the raper. They love the person that kidnapped them because there has been so much time that the mind has morphed into, well, I love you because I don't really have any other choice. And what Black people need to understand is you do have a choice. You have a privilege. You have an opportunity in which you can put people in office that will change laws. Andre can attest to this. He was over there in Seattle, of all places, and changed a law. A law has been changed to help the Black people. I see your hand.
I'm raising my hand. One, I did not come on this thing here today to get in trouble. Y'all trying to get me in big trouble. When this is over, they're going to be like, and Tamika Mallory, you know I stay in trouble. Tezlyn, we can't be in no trouble on here today.
Andre's supposed to be helping us not get in trouble. Andre, you can help us.
Andre over here ain't saying nothing. You know, Andre's a man of many words. He not saying nothing. He leaving us over here to just keep talking and saying what we saying. He know already. The Democratic Party
I'm respecting the sisters. Out of much respect for the sisters. Release your measure.
I've already been in trouble. My mayor went to try to be president, and we done went in there and blew up the whole the debate to stop him from being able to lie and say that there's a great relationship between police in New York here in New York. I mean, police and in the Black community. And it goes on, all the stuff that we do. But here's the deal. Timing matters. Timing matters. And I'm gonna tell you, I love Puff. And I only corrected Andre's name, I mean, obviously because I know Andre, but I corrected it because I love Andre Harrell, right? And I know what Andre has done to bring Puff and the people together. Andre was that. So when you saw Puff doing something great that you said, this is great for Black folks, Andre Harrell was sitting in the center of it. That's who did it. So I've worked with Andre a long time, and I respect and love him so much, and God rest his soul.
Yes.
And so I'm not, and also I support and agree with every word that Puff said. Like from the time he started talking until the end, I agree. The only issue I have is that the timing matters. So you can say, well, we had choices. We're not going to just have our vote taken for granted. You won't use and abuse us. I saw a meme one day that said, vote blue no matter who raped you. And that messed me up. You know, it messed me up. I sat with that. Wow, vote blue. I'm gonna tell you, vote no matter what, you know. But the time to have these conversations was when everybody was running for president. When Julian Castro was running for president, who I love. When Elizabeth was running. When Bernie was running. When Klobuchar and this one, that one, and the third. When you next. When Marianne Williamson, who I think would actually be a great president with all her ways, because she seemed to get it and understand the conditions of Black people more than anybody else on that stage, right? There was a time that I feel the conversation should happen, because what's happening now is that we're left in a situation, and some of us have the privilege to sit back and say, well, Trump doesn't have to be elected out of office, right? Some of us have that privilege. I have that privilege. And many of us here have that privilege. But people who live in the South Bronx in New York, who are dying of the coronavirus right now because of the failure of this administration, and not to say that they didn't have epidemics that they were already dealing with, and a pandemic came over on top of that. So I get that. But the fact that our government slipped, and not even slipped, failed to catch the ball is very, very, very dangerous. And to have them be elected again at this point, and again, I'm saying this and struggling with it because I'm not a Joe Biden fan. But I am a fan of, we have to get rid of the current president, and we really cannot give people a way to sit back and find some excuse to not show up at the polls or mail it in or whatever it is that they need to do. So, and again, I'm conflicted. So, Tezlyn, hopefully you can help me, because I'm conflicted. I'm not 100% standing strong in what I'm saying, but I know that the situation we're in currently is not healthy, and others have been unsafe. But I want to hope that the Bidens of the world and others, although today he didn't help himself, have learned something from the fight that we've been in over these many years.
Let me say something. I've listened, and what I want to say something is the state of Blackness. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And for a white man, anyone outside of our race, to be able to be confidently define what he believes a Black person is, makes you understand the state of Black America, because we haven't defined ourselves.
Facts.
Right? So I try to go into the interior of where the real issues are. And that's because we've been very, very divided as a people, and our focus has been in other things. We're not so as encouraged, ramped up, enthused about politics as we are the next Drake mixtape. Our focus is wrong. And as long as our focus keeps being wrong, we can't build. Now, what we're doing right now is a remnant of us is coming together, trying to solve what the real problem is, and that's our division. Because there's many voices out there. There's convolution in the air, right? So many voices within our people. And one of the reasons why I did Conversations with the Streets is because I figured if I didn't get leadership together from all over the country, leaders that are Pan-African and Muslims and Christians and whatever belief that we had as a people, one of the criteria for people coming to Conversations with the Streets was leave your ideology at home, right? Because the system has learned how to separate us through our ideology. So what this is about Black love, Black unity, and the reclaiming of our youth. And I know all of us, no matter what particular situations that we are operating in, we can all agree to that. And if I can get leadership to come together on that, we can build something, right? So as we go across the country with Conversations with the Streets, continuing to call on leadership underneath that narrative, though, because you have to have a narrative that you build upon, because we're all over the place. And they're taking advantage of us being all over the place. See, what happened in Washington State, what I figured out is that, we have been operating as a people dealing with the system for so long. And what they have learned is how to control our reactions to the killings and the things that they have done to us for so many years. There's immediate reaction from our communities. And I'm sorry because I'm picking in a different direction, but we can get back. There is immediate reaction in our community, and they've learned to master that reaction. They said our community will rile up, they'll march 2 weeks, and it's over with. So what I decided to do is that there would never be a reaction from me, that there would be a response, so that I can keep the pressure off on the shooting, the initial shooting, instead of the activity of the community that might be showing out because of historic trauma, right? So what I wanted to do is learn how to build power, which is not a word that is frequently used in our communities. Building power. What does that mean? How do we do that as a people? How do we build power, right? So what I decided to do is, instead of our voice being marginalized, I started to go to, like I said earlier, the Native communities and other people of color, and tell them, listen, you facing the same thing we facing. And we all been losing individually, and they've been defeating us individually, but they can't beat that. They can't beat all of us. So that's building power. And what we have to learn to do is start building that power with our leadership and our voice. Because even though I brought all those organizations and those other communities on board, it was my voice that they listened to. I was leading that as a Black-led organization, right? So we each had the genius to do the work, all of us. But we have to start building power. collectively trying to bring our voices together with that Black unity, Black love, and the reclaiming of our youth, and elevate that above everything else, above whether I'm a Christian, whether I'm a Muslim, or whatever. And if we start there, then we can ask our people across the country when we have issues, we won't buy for 1 month in this country.
That's
Right.
And if you want to see things change,
Right.
the power of our money, we're not there yet because we got to get this collective thing going. But once we get there and we put that word out collectively from all leaders from all over this country and say, we won't buy for 1 month, we'll bring this country to its knees.
But I'm not trying to cut, I don't want to cut you off, and I want to hear from Tezlyn, but I just want to say, we got to define who's the leaders. To see the same people who are taking money from the corporations that we're talking about not buying from are the ones that some of our people are listening to as their leaders. And at some point, we have to get to a place where we're willing to call out those who are not properly serving our communities because they are being led down a certain road. And that's a real serious point. Because we've said, don't buy from Verizon, don't buy from Walmart, don't, at different times for different things, whether it be Verizon around Colin Kaepernick or Walmart for many issues, or McDonald's for prisons, or, all that. And what we find is that those same companies are purchasing, chicken dinners at galas. And when you have Black churches and others who are part of those mechanisms and those networks, it becomes very difficult to help people understand. And we have become the new cool. So I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying that that's a big part. And maybe it's not calling out. Maybe it's so much calling in and sitting down with people and saying, you and what you're doing is no longer beneficial to our folks. So I'm sorry, Tezlyn.
No worries.
Go ahead, Steve.
So I heard a couple of things from both of you, and I think it kind of sums up to when we talk about there's a time and place for everything under the sun. You talked about timing. Andre talked about us as a collective, as a unity. And I want to say this, because I know you were joking in the beginning when you said, Tezlyn, we'll always take them back. We'll always, bring them back in. And the answer to that, sis, is really no, I won't. Mm. The codependency, that's called codependency. When I was suffering with codependency, I understood, and the person that was utilizing my emotions in that way understood that I will always take them back no matter what. Mm. And that is what we're seeing. And my mama raised me different. You clown in the store, you get your ass whooped in the store. So see, timing from how I grew up meant I'm gonna meet you where you at.
That's right.
And that mentality, to me, is the timing that we're dealing with right now. See, when I hear, and I've heard that echoed out there to me when they say, the time to do that was early on. But see, we did that early on. We did it last year. We did it 4 years before that. We did it 50 years, 10 years, 40 years, 600, 200 years. We've done that. So people that are now saying it wasn't just Puff Daddy that said it. It wasn't just Diddy that said our vote is not for free. Hell, I said it in 2014 before Trump ever ran for office. I even knew who the hell Bernie Sanders was. He wasn't my senator. So it's not like we just said this for the first time. In fact, the timing is so on time because it is his job to be able to bow to us, not the other way around.
Yes. Oh,
see, it's not about, see, that's why I keep talking about with the bottom chick. It takes the street, I guess. The bottom chick understands the power that she has. And as long as we if we keep priding ourselves, the Black woman holds down the Democrat Party. The Black woman gonna always save you. The Black woman, oh yeah, it's us. Oh yeah, girl, we do it all. We cook greens, we save the party. But yet we hesitate when it comes to asking for a demand. The time is now more than ever because it's Joe Biden that wants that position of power. Not Tamika, not Tezlyn. I understand. It does affect me. I am not a privileged. I am not a rich woman. I'm a single mother taking care of my child. Every dollar I get goes to putting my child through school, goes to living day to day. It ain't no mama, no daddy, nobody, everybody in the ground. It ain't no man around here paying for nothing. So so I want to make that clear to people that there is no privilege on my end. In fact, I've lost more by speaking up for Black folks than I have gained. It's called the consequences of consciousness. So there's been more contracts lost, more jobs lost, more opportunities lost. There has been no gain for speaking up for Black folks unapologetically. I think we can all We can all understand that. I don't have Puff Daddy's money. I'm a poor woman, and I'm saying that the time is now. And so if we are not, in fact, because it is just Trump and Biden, this is the perfect time to say that if you really say you are what you are, this is the perfect time to go to the negotiation table. When you put your bid up for a house, the house, you walk up to the house says it's for 100,000. Then you come back and you give an offer, and they give a counter, and you give another and another until the demand is met, until there's some equal footing. It's not in the middle of the negotiation that you say, well, I've already looked at the house and I've already walked around the house. So, I've already passed that time. I should have asked for that early on. No, see, the time is now that we at the table. Right now we're at the table.
That's
Folks
right.
will still vote how they want to vote. But we also cannot allow people to be able to continue to get passes and
That's
not
right.
be held accountable to at least ask some questions. And then there's one other thing I want to say on unity, because this is what I said a moment ago about we all organize differently. I don't believe in this mentality that all human beings, no other race talks about how we all got to do something the same, how we all got to be on the same page, how we all got to come together. I appreciate what you've done, Tamika, what Linda has done with organizing women all over this country, Black, white, brown, Native American. That's awesome. That may not be my role. My role may just be Ice Cube to roll up on the scene and do a drive-by. We got Trays who got out the car and did what they did, and we got Ice Cubes. Let's let everybody work within their space and not trying to have a commonality. Let's just use the Asian American community for an example.
Nah.
It's not a stereotype, it's just the facts. When we look at the hood, and you can see nail shops owned by Asian Americans are back to back to back. You never hear them say, let's all come together and get one big store. Let's all get on the same page. Let's all have one beauty shop or one beauty supply, or one nail shop. What they do is they monopolize the whole entire community. And this is not dissing them, because I salute the game. What they do is say, let's have a store on every single corner and let's control it all. We do not all have to be on the same page. We can come together in forums like this, and I can organize mine and you can organize yours. We have different voices that speak to different areas of the community. Andre can speak to different diverse groups. He can talk to the streets. He can talk to the pastors. He can talk to organizers. But I don't have to say, well, Andre, get like me and come want to organize all the colors and let's all get together, all people of color. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's space for people to do that. But I think that we have to understand that we have been divinely called to do certain things in certain places in certain time. But we should have the mindset and the respect to understand that I know what Tamika's doing, and I know that ultimately what she's doing is fighting for our people. So the only thing that we should really be united on is, one, respect what somebody else is doing out there, even if you disagree.
That's right.
You can challenge them, you can inbox them, you can have a conversation. Hey, Tamika, this hurt me, sis, so I'm not understanding where you're coming from. This, can I get an understanding? Can we have an understanding on where we are? Dre talked about it in American Pimp. I always bring it up, even though that's his past life, but it doesn't matter. When he talked about, being able to have a conversation as a man, being respected as a man and as a woman, we can come to each other and have grown folk conversation. For example, when Angela arrived, when they put out the Washington Post piece, somebody immediately came in and said, well, why weren't you invited? Trying to trigger me and to feel that I will be insecure to say, well, I should have been invited. My response was, salute to those sisters for talking. See, I don't feel slighted if I'm not a part of something. I'm just glad they saying something. Now, they've been criticized for how they said it. They've been criticized on both sides by people who support them. Hey, you shouldn't have said nothing because you shouldn't say nothing. And then other people who say, well, you didn't say it right. They can't win for losing. Me personally, I said, I'm just glad you said something because I knew the consequence that it took for you to say it. Now, it might be my job to say it a little bit harder. It might be Vicky Dilla's job to go even further. That's why you got the Dallas Pistons. That's why you got the Bull. I love watching that documentary on The Last Dance, because you got a chance to see that everybody moves different. And I feel that we are at the last dance for our people. And so we just got to let people do their thing and say, we're going to let Tamika do this role and I'm going to do this role. And then we have a collective pressure and an understanding that we respect with each other and what we're contributing to and move from there.
And I want to just piggyback on that. We're being controlled through social engineering. It has been engineered to pinpoint us and our feelings about things, which takes us away from critical thinking. It takes us away from being rational in our thoughts. And so we react, like Andre said, we react, not respond. There's a difference between reacting and response. A response is something that you have critically thought out. What is it exactly that you're trying to achieve, and how are you going to go about doing that? When you react to something, that is just your emotions just going all out. And so what they do is they constantly put out there, and I'm gonna step on some people's toes, and that's all right, but they constantly put out there about us being shot by police and us being shot by white people. But you do not see the same intensity on when Black people kill Black people. And thus, we don't have any accountability. When you are not accountable for your house. And so what Tezlyn is saying, what I think that you're saying, at least what I'm saying, is I don't have to agree with Tamika. I don't have to agree with Tezlyn. But what we are trying to do is get our house, our community, our people to a better advantage point in which we can be successful. And that starts one house at a time. If you don't know where your child is, you don't know what he's doing or he or she is doing, and this and the other, you have 3 and 4 generations of pathology going on and on and on and on. That actually has nothing to do with some other culture or some other race. That has to do with your house. And we cannot continue to ask for people outside of our home to come into our home and fix our shit unless we want to get rid of our freedom, which is something that we're experiencing with this COVID-19. I ain't going to that. But you have to make sure that you take control of your own household and be responsible. Because if each person, back in the day in the Harlem Renaissance, each person was in charge of their own children. And if your children step out, the next 2 doors down, somebody's grandmother or somebody's auntie said, I'm going to let your mother know what you are doing, because we don't want no shit on this block. You understand? And so we have to be able to take responsibility for ourselves. It is more likely for me to be robbed, shot, killed, raped by a Black person in a community than it is for somebody else. So you cannot continue to constantly step outside of your house. We have to, at some point, take responsibility for ourselves, accountability for ourselves. Not saying that we ignore all the other things that are going on, but when we have a unified front, whether there's diversity within the unification, you are still unified in the thought process that we want our people to be treated fairly because we have power, not because we are. I'm reading the book David and Goliath by Malcolm Caldwell, the same guy that did the Outliers. David and Goliath, that book talks about David was not a less than. He actually had more advantage than Goliath. And we want to always give so much to Goliath, but we don't really want to look at all the advantages that David had. And there are so many things. And that's why I'm starting the Black privilege movement. There is so much that we as Black people have. We actually have, and we don't use it to our advantage. We take our things, push them to the side, and then want to look at all the other advantages that people have, which actually can be completely outweighed by the advantages that we have. We actually can do it. We need to be organized, and I personally think that we should all be giving $10 a month to somebody. I vote Andre Taylor. We need to have some kind of a bank account where we can pay and buy politicians, put them in place so that we can change these laws. Protesting all the time ain't doing a goddamn thing, and that's a fact.
But that's right.
Well,
because I know Tamika.
Wait a minute, Tezlyn.
I know you about to say something. Yeah.
As a regular protest, it is doing some things, because we just made sure with our protest that the police chief in the killing of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, he had to resign. Today, Kenny Walker, as we protested, her partner who was in the home at the time when police came there and he shot the police officer. The charges against him have been dropped. The officers, not the officers, but the men who were responsible for killing Ahmaud Arbery, they also have been arrested. So protesting works. And I think that what we're talking about is, as you said, the unity does not mean uniformity. Doesn't mean everybody's doing exactly the same thing, but that all things must continue, that the cycles and the motion must still happen, right? So someone I think it was Andre who spoke earlier about how we spend our money. That to me is the ultimate plan, right? Like we get to the point where we can ultimately say that we're not going to continue to pump $1.4 trillion into this economy without actually focusing on who, what, when, and how, because we just spend without necessarily having a checks and balances on our dollars. And if we can get to a point where we're focused more on that, I think that we'll have much more control over what is happening with our people. However, I'll say this, Megan, you have mentioned the whole idea of us managing our own homes. And I certainly agree with that, right? Like I can't argue with you one iota that we have a responsibility to manage the violence in our communities, to manage the abuse of our elders, to manage the cleanliness of our neighborhoods, right? Because we already know, as this session is called, no one is coming to save us. I think the difference is, though, that if Ray Ray shoots John, somebody's looking for him and he's actually going to face some consequences if found for whatever it is that he's doing. We're living in a society today where you can kill a Black person as a white person or as a police officer and be able to walk free from doing that until we have to protest and boycott and do all the things we have to do. But they don't have a problem locking up Ray Ray. So there is some checks and balances. Whether or not all of it is happening in our communities in the ways in which it should be happening, I can't speak to, but I do know that our people are suffering so many different issues, whether it be from poverty, from the lack of education, from homelessness, helplessness, and everything else that we're going through, that to ask us to also police ourselves is not as easy as we would want it to be. Doesn't mean that we don't have to do the work. I'm just saying, or offering, that we have a lot of issues that we're up against as a people. And to have to also fight for Breonna Taylor, who's killed in her home by people who didn't announce themselves as being police officers, is a whole lot of hell for us to be in. So we put that all in one bucket because it's a lot of work and it's a Black conversation. We have to keep having it. How do we manage our home, fight the enemy, and figure out how to do the things that Tezlyn was speaking of to make sure we have the right leadership to help us do both? That's important. Go ahead.
And I think what you got, we're all saying the same thing.
We are.
It's so beautiful because Megan talked about, before talking about policing our own homes, she talked about laws in the beginning. Right. And she said several times that we got to put politicians in place.
But wait, you can't take my time because I was still getting ready.
Oh, you still going? Okay, go ahead.
No. It's not saying, it takes each one of us to go out, and our messages have to be together and separate in order to catch all of the different elements of our community. Because there's people in our community that are coming from many different directions. And at different times of the day, you need Farrakhan to talk to you. You need your preacher to speak to you. You might need, it's a whole lot of different, the elected official, there's a lot of different people who have to be able to speak. And thankfully, this is a Black militant space. So, we're all coming from the same vein. But I would say, Tezlyn, that this idea of whether or not as we said, the Asian community has a level of unity in terms of how they move. The one thing that they're unified around is the idea that we have to corner the marketplace. Mm-hmm. How we get that done can be different, right? How we get that done is different, but we know we have to get it done.
Right.
And I think that's what Andre, what we've got to be focused on is how do we get Black people to understand that we're all a part of one plan, that we're not separate and apart from one another. We're a part of a plan, and the plan has to be going towards a certain direction. And there's some people that's going to take the streets and they don't mess with police. There's some people that's going to organize with police. There's some people that's going to work on elected officials and other people who don't believe in the voting process at all. And how do we leverage that? How do we go into a Joe Biden's office and say to him, hey, there's a whole bunch of people that don't want to vote for you at all. So what can you give us? I'm not sitting here saying that Puff's comments are wrong. I'm saying that there are times when we as a people speaking has a certain level of power, right? And then there are times when we're rolling the dice. And hopefully out of rolling the dice, we'll get what it is that we want. So I would never speak against him because I had reporters calling me, asking me to say whether I agree or don't agree. I'm not going to do that because I do agree. I agree with the frustration. I agree with the passion. I agree with the idea that these things have to be said. But I also know that we are in a time period where we don't have an option to hold our vote hostage. What does that mean? And maybe you all can explain to me what it looks like to hold our vote hostage and have somebody who is going to be able to confirm the next Supreme Court justices, right? Who is going to be able to pass laws and legislation that either put or not our people in prisons, out of prisons, in situations or out of situations. I'm trying to figure out, and y'all can help me. What does that look like?
So I just
hold on. Let me say something.
And I'm done. And I'm not saying that Joe Biden can't also be a part of that. I'm just trying to ask, because unfortunately we've always been presented with the lesser of two evils. What does it look like for us to say we're going to hold our vote hostage?
Let me say something. Let me say something. Let me speak to what Tezlyn said earlier. You know, one of the biggest things that I teach, because I'm not talking about something I want to do. I'm talking about something that I've already done. I've already done what a lot of us are reaching to do collectively around this country. I'm not speaking upon something that I'm guessing about. So one of the first things that I tell people when building power is I don't have to agree with you 100% of the time in order to build with you. I don't have to agree with you 100% of the time in order for me to build with you. And I'm going to have to disagree a little bit with Tezlyn on the fact that I know what she's saying, but we need clarity on this. As Tamika was alluding to, that there has to be a common goal. And each of us operating in our own geniuses to make sure that happens. But there has to be a collective goal in order for that to happen. That's the unity I'm talking about. That's why I'm pulling people from all over the country to do conversations with the street, to try to work on that collective goal. You operating your genius here, you operating your genius here. So in Washington State, when we were building power, I understood that people were going to operate in different roles. But when we went to the governor, there had so many collective voices from unions on down. When we went to the mayor, when we went to the police chief, it was so powerful that they had to get on the team. We submitted a whole nation underneath us with my leadership. So I know what I'm talking about because I've already done it. And my feeling was, if it could be done outside of our community, it could be done within our community, right? And so I'm just trying to sprinkle the seeds of what that looks like through conversations of the street in order for us to come together and not be this way, fighting each other. That we're coming together in love, and when the people are hearing, they're hearing the genius from Tezlyn. They're hearing the genius from Tamika and from Megan. They're hearing different perspectives because our people have always been tribes. We've always been tribes. This tribe, this tribe, this tribe, and all of those tribes are out there operating in their genius and then coming back to the nucleus, bringing all that information. I consider Muslims tribes, Christians tribe, Pan-African tribe, whatever the genius you have, bring back to the nucleus. And let's operate within that nucleus. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tezlyn.
Okay.
No, because he mentioned
And
you. Go ahead.
Okay, and I don't think, and you know, I don't think, I think we're all saying the same thing. So I appreciate providing clarity. We're all literally saying the same thing, not necessarily, and I respectfully understand when you say you disagree with what I'm saying. So allow me to provide some clarity. I think all of us have resumes to show what we've done in our own space. We've all shown that we can build power, whether it's in corporate America, whether it's in politics, nonprofits, in the policing area. We all, I don't think we would be at this table if we weren't speaking from experience based on what we've done. What I'm saying is, which is exactly what you're saying, exactly what Megan said, when we talked about knowing who we can build with, how far we can have, that everybody's not going to come, that there is a mindset to say that everybody may just not want to build with me or with Andre or with Tamika, and that's okay.
Right.
I'm simply speaking of spending a lot of time on what I said in the beginning, on trying to get everybody on a, because you're absolutely right, Tamika, when you say there's a difference between being unified and thinking we all have to do things uniform, that we all have to be the same. I've been in the military. I understand where we all have to be the same versus us having a common collective goal. We all have a common collective goal, like Megan said, which is bringing our people to a larger place, which is why we're here. What I'm saying is, when Megan said we have to get our own house in order, but she also talked about the laws. Her opinion on protesting is certainly not going to be Tamika's opinion, because you're the protesting queen, successfully protesting. But that is exactly my point. We can do both things simultaneously.
Right.
We can protest, and we can have folks over here saying, hey, you know what? It's time out for protesting. But that also goes to the same thing Tamika was saying. It's okay for Puff Daddy to say something in that timing space and have people who do things in different times and spaces.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one thing that says, okay, let's all agree that this is the right time and this ain't the right time. Because if Puff Daddy never said it, and he said it so raw with no clarity, with no context, he didn't go deeper. So it set everything on fire, bottom line, you know, and sometimes you got to shake shit up. Notice that immediately after he said it, Joe Biden reintroduced his Lift Every Voice Black plan, which was already there. They just changed around a couple of words and bumped it back up, basically.
And called it Lift Every Voice?
That's right. Had Puff Daddy never said that, had he never said that, we wouldn't have that conversation. Had Charlemagne, Joe Biden ignored the Breakfast Club this entire time. It wasn't that he wasn't trying to have this conversation with him during the primary. You know that, that's your brother. So it wasn't that he waited to the right time and, you know, well, I'm just going to wait to the right. He's been trying to get Joe Biden to sit down this entire time. He chose not to. But you know why Joe Biden brought his ass now? Because if Diddy didn't say what he said.
That's right.
And if we didn't keep on putting that pressure, when I went to the Breakfast Club and said, why is it that Biden is not the only one that hasn't come? If that collective pressure wasn't continued, he wouldn't be sitting down now.
Excuse me.
And guess what he did? Issued his apology immediately. Now, whether he mean it or don't mean it, if it don't mean shit, it don't mean, hey, it is what it is. The bottom line is, it took him, a hip hop, what they say hip hop, who I feel is highly intelligent, but I'm just going by, you know, what he does is hip hop radio, to bring this man to an understanding that you must respect us. It wasn't MSNBC. It wasn't Fox. It wasn't CNN. It wasn't none of these leaders running around here. It was Charlemagne who did that. And he did that by the energy and the pressure of the hip hop community, the street community, the millennial community, what I call I think it's called X-Millennials, which is between Generation X and also millennials. It took that type of pressure to make Joe Biden finally answer that question. And that is why the timing was so perfect and why it was on time. So I think we just all have to understand that we all move differently and things can be done simultaneously. I know people don't want to hear what Megan got to say when she say getting our own house in order, and they love to say, oh, that's just like saying black crime in Chicago. But there is black crime in Chicago. But maybe Megan can focus on what she's doing, and Tamika can focus on what she's doing, and Tezlyn move how she move, and Andre do what he do, and bring all the people together. And we have a collective understanding of unity that when we call, you answer the phone. That's really what it comes down to me.
For the record, and this is why I don't
Hey,
want
you cut me off, sis. Now you checked me early for cutting you off. But
I just want to say, no, I want to add a piece to you.
But I'm done.
In addition, that Joe Biden didn't not go to the Breakfast Club just because he chose not to go.
That's right.
There were people in his campaign who
That's
looked
true.
like us.
But I blame him though.
If we getting our house in order,
yeah.
To Megan's point.
Oh yeah, we got to get. Oh
yeah, get our house, hallelujah, in order. Then we got to talk about the fact that there are people who look like us who would not pressure him to do so.
Oh, hey. Well, first of all, let's be clear. Just Megan, I don't know if you know, I was Bernie Sanders' former racial justice director. It's some folks anyway. Now you trying to get me in trouble now.
I know, don't do it. But let's
be clear.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah, let's be clear. I went after Bernie Sanders for his movement and the racism within his movement. So I ain't got no problem with calling out nobody, whether I work for him, don't work for him, used to work for him. And yes, there are operatives that'll allow that crap to happen, and it happens in each and every single campaign. However, I still put it on the candidate at the end of the day that ultimately holds responsibility. Same way they blame Bernie Sanders' arrogance and this and that. It falls on Bernie Sanders. It falls on Joe Biden. It fell on Kamala Harris. The same way it falls on everything else. So ultimately it comes down to the candidate. But you are absolutely right that there were folks in that campaign, and some of them same folks is in that campaign now was also in other campaigns. That were keeping. I mean, let's just be real about it.
It's important to say that.
Yeah. That were keeping these Black conversations. So we can be really honest about that. But I just want to say that ultimately, and some of them folks, now you really better get me in trouble. When we want to talk about getting our accountability, I mean, we might. If you're gonna say it, let me just say this.
This conversation with the streets. Say it.
Some of these folks, and can we just go ahead and be honest about this? Because some of these folks that's been selling us out were also lifted up. And see, this goes back to Tamika when you say, how do we define the leaders? Because some of these folks was lifted up as all for the culture. You remember the curator of the culture, and I'm so down, and I'm so this, and I'm so that. So some of these people have been put in positions of leadership based upon what you appear to be, opposed to the realities of what we know. And so when you say some folks on his camp, we can pretty much guess who those folks are. Let's just go ahead and say it's the Black folks that say you don't have to sit down with Charlamagne, or you don't have to respect Andre, or you don't have to respect Tamika, or you don't have to respect. It's the Black folks that do that. We know that. Malcolm X warned us about this long ago. But we also have a responsibility when you say get our house in order to make sure you really about to get me in trouble. Account. No, let's just be real. We have to be sure, which I've done. I've called out leaders or operatives on that campaign that I have issues with, that had issues with Bernie Sanders as well. So when the help runs to help, and we don't do anything to challenge, and we fall back and say, well, maybe they got a point, then now we're going back to the same thing in the beginning. And so there are people who are selling us out inside these campaigns, but ultimately it still falls on Joe Biden. I'm gonna let Megan take it from here. I yield the rest of my time to Megan.
Wait a minute.
And then she dropped it on you.
Yeah.
Tezlyn said, when the help runs the help. Ooh, baby. Let me tell you something. Psychologically, that's a big situation, because you always want to separate the house nigga from the field nigga. But you don't realize there's two house niggas. The house nigga actually is separated into two people, just like the field nigga. The field nigga is there's one person that wants to be free. There's another field nigga that's okay with being where they're at. There's a house nigga that is using their opportunity of being in the house to help free the rest of them. And then there's a house nigga that's happy to be in the house. So when you have the helping the help, you ain't gonna get far, ho, because what you have is you have people inside of the house that will contribute to the continuation of them staying in the house.
Mhm.
So you cannot give your all to those kind of people. And you have to have some discernment. And I will say this, and I want to say it on record, that Black people have become their own enemy.
Mhm.
It is we that have, whether it is colorism, whether it is money, whether it is the derogatory terminology within rap music, whatever it is, we actually have hurt ourselves because we do not stop and say, wait a minute, hold up. Oh, what Tezlyn is saying, what Andre is saying, what Tamika is saying, yes, we can come from different areas and have different ways to get to the nucleus. But if we do not hold a standard, if we don't hold a standard, then we will allot for anything. And what has happened is we use slavery, we use the current situation, we use all this shit to make it so that, I'm sorry, saying shit, Andre, I'm sorry. We use all this stuff to say, oh, well, we can't do any better because we've been held down. Oh, well, we can't do any better. And we can do better. We have to hold a standard. I watched a video of Andre the other day where he talks about, he talks about, it looks like you were at a church, Andre, and you talked about that there are people that call you all the time, men in particular, that call you for life coaching on how to be a man. And you ask them, what are you willing to give up? And if the answer is not everything,
Mhm.
then that means you're not ready, right? So I'm not saying that we all need to be martyrs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we all need to be arrested and go to the Birmingham jail. I'm not saying any of that shit. But I am saying that I do need you to make sure that your children are reading books. I do need to make sure that your children have a business.
Your vocals are breaking up.
Who's breaking up? Mine?
Your vocals are breaking up a little bit.
Oh, probably because I'm yelling. I do need you to make sure that your children are reading books. I do need to make sure that your children have a business plan by the age of 13. I do need to make sure that you have life insurance policies. I do need to make sure that you understand the reason for having life insurance policies. I do need to make sure that you understand that our ancestors are not only contributing to slavery, but that our ancestors have contributed to 80%, if not more, of all the inventions that we use today. If we don't talk about those things, then we are not giving our children an advantage in which they already have, and we are not being accountable. It doesn't matter.
Can you guys hear her clear?
I can hear.
Oh, I hear very well.
Tamika said, oh, I hear very well.
Very well.
We are not giving our children the advantages in which they deserve. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, a lobbyist, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is there should be certain standards in which we hold for our community regardless. And that way, whether you are Republican or Democrat, whether you are Democratic and you use all these fantastical programs that they have to get Section 8 and food stamps and blah, blah, blah. If you're using that for the advantages of your family, I promise you, it's not going to be 3 generations of food stamps in your house. It will be 1, maybe 2. And the second generation will use that as a step hole to go up. If you are using all these different things, you are going to make sure that you're putting back into the nucleus. And I believe what Tamika is saying, that we have to have, and I hate to really say this, but I think that Black people need it. We do need a leader. And like I said, I've already put my vote in for Andre. And I don't put my vote in for Andre because he's my brother. I put my vote in for Andre because he has manifested and shown that he knows how to make laws change. Mm-hmm. And it is not just about us protesting. We have to make sure, yes, Tamika, what you said is the protesting has worked because people have resigned, people have been fired, people have been arrested. But the protesting has not changed the law to make sure that everybody gets the same treatment.
Well, that I don't know, Megan. We got to talk about that. I don't think that's true. I could talk about a lot of laws that have passed based upon protesting. I hear what you're saying.
All of it is needed.
I hear what you're saying. I just think that the protesting, as my old boss, Reverend Al Sharpton, used to say, it's like you turn the lights on the roaches, and then they start moving, and now we know there's roaches in the kitchen at night. You know what I mean, right? And then you got a group of people that come in and say, okay, now we got to come in and be Ghostbusters. We got to bust the roaches. And then there's people who say, okay, now we need to close the holes. So it's layered. And I'm only saying, I am very sophisticated in my understanding about what you're saying. You're right on point. Just protesting by itself it ain't gonna work. It has never, and it will never. But I have to, me being a person who is constantly encouraging people to protest, the only reason why I'm stepping in on that is because what happens with some of our people is that they say, well, that means I shouldn't show up. No, we have to be a part of that process as well.
Okay. I can agree with that.
So let me
understand
interject.
that everybody may not want to
interject.
But some people may not want to.
Yeah, and
that's fine.
And can we respect that? You know, can we understand?
Let me interject something, ladies.
This is so good.
Protest is the beginning of a situation, but protest must be connected to policy change. Whenever MLK protested, it was always connected to policy change, right? So that was the problem I had in the beginning with Black Lives Matter, because it wasn't connected to policy change. And we had a lot of people involved, and there was no funneling into what change looks like and how do we do that. So we want to make sure that we're not wasting the enthusiasm of people, just for the protest. We want to make sure we can funnel them into policy change, funnel them into doing the work. So let me just say this. I've heard you guys, and this is a beautiful conversation, the demonstration of how powerful, our people are, and particularly our women. And I appreciate you guys again for being here. When I came back to Seattle, my mindset was I came to lead. I came to lead, and I've always pushed that forward of what that means, the consequence, the penalty, the suffering of leadership, and what that really, really means. When they killed my brother, when I came back here, I sat down with the chief of police, Kathleen O'Toole, and remember I was telling you that the system is waiting for us to react. And so remember I said that there wasn't going to be no reaction, there was going to be responses. So I sat down with her and I told her that I know I can't get my little brother back, but I'm still willing to work with you so that we together can reduce the incidences of violence in the community. Now, this was a shock to her because she wasn't expecting a response. She was expecting a reaction. And what I was able to do with that was build upon that nugget right there of responding and not reacting. And what that did is it gave me power to put pressure on them to continue to engage according to my narrative. Because when you react, you lose the narrative, and they take it, and they've been whooping us for hundreds of years by us losing the narrative. So by me keeping the narrative and keeping the pressure on the system, they had to continue to show up. And my little Black organization in the central area, where there used to be mostly Black, but not anymore, we brought all the most powerful people in the state to that little place based upon that narrative, which is why I was saying back earlier about making sure we control our own narratives, because we've been losing fights because we cede our narratives to the enemy. So we continued on that narrative, continue to build on that narrative of responding and not reacting. And that made people want to be involved, right? Because that narrative is a powerful, powerful narrative. Yeah. Because now, if I'm asking somebody to come, they got to show up because they say, well, they're not violent, they're not this, they're not this. But this is how we used to say in the streets, this is game. And it's not, game is not deceitful. Game just means knowledge, right? So people used to wonder how this guy who come from the streets, whose mama was a hoe and daddy was a pimp, could come here with a record like that to submit a whole state underneath him to lead the country into having the first police accountability law. How did that happen? How would they even let them up in them rooms? So let me tell you guys this story. I was in a room with some of the most powerful police organizations and presidents one time, and they're always been talking about my past. And so I used this as an opportunity. So I raised my hand in the room with all these powerful police union presidents and everything. And I said, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. I'm talking about leadership. I come to lead. So they said, okay. The first thing I said is, you all are hypocrites. They looked at me. I said, let me explain myself. I said, I know there's been talking about where I come from. I said, I've been talking about where I come from 20 years because I believe telling my story before my enemy does. I said, I believe telling my story before my enemy does. So I explained to them, listen, the reason why I say you're a hypocrite is this. I'm gonna ask you a question. Have any one of you officers being on the street seen somebody that might've been a gang or involved in something, and you told them they can change their lives? They shook their head. I said, you told them they can change their life. I said, well, I'm shocked. I said, because I've been married 20 years at the time. I overcame the streets. I've lectured at universities. I've been on TV telling my story, taught at treatment centers. My son graduated from Yale. My daughter graduated from UCLA. I am the evidence that you can change your life. So when you telling these kids that they can change their life, they're looking at you and saying, listen, I might not ever be a published writer and do all the stuff that Andre Taylor did, but at least I know that it's possible. And if you are denigrating Andre Taylor with what he done, why the fuck should I change my life?
Right. That's right.
And I shut all that down from that place forward. So as we are talking about political things, I don't cede a lot of power to systems, because I know we got the power within ourselves to change systems. So the work is an inside job.
It is an inside job.
It's an inside job. And the more we continue to focus outside of ourselves, we cede our own power to the system and to the enemy. It is an inside job. We are capable. We are powerful. We got everything we need right now.
That's it. That's it. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
my message.
That's it. Dr. Thomas Sowell. Well, first of all, Brother Andre, I mean, my God, that's exactly what it is. We are all that we need to be. We don't need, we need to make sure that in our homes we change things, because in that way we are able to change the outside. Dr. Thomas Sowell says, and it's somebody that I really, really study. He's a doctor of economics, and he says the problem isn't that Johnny can't read. The problem isn't that Johnny can't think. The problem is that Johnny doesn't know what thinking is. He confuses thinking with feeling. You're confusing the emotions of things that happen. You, when your brother was killed, you could have gotten so emotional that you became frazzled and nothing happened. And that is, we're at a pivotal point at this time. Yes, we get a lot of people when we keep posting and reposting and reposting all this negative shit. We post it and post it and post it. We get a lot of likes. We get a lot of followers, but we are not affecting conscious cognitive change when we do that. Not until we actually put forth activities and tools. Like I said, I need you to read some books. I need you, these are things that you can actually do. It has nothing to do with policies in your society. You can read a book without a policy being changed. You can actually come up with a business plan without policies being changed. You can police your own household, your children, and how much weed they smoke, how much sex they have, well, in your own home. This
right. Let's get it. Let's be clear. Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying?
I get it.
I mean, we come from a generation of respect for our elders. And I think that a lot of that is missing in the community today. Not necessarily because children don't want to respect their elders, but because the elders have not been respect worthy. And we must change that. It has nothing to do with white privilege. It has nothing to do with white people. It has everything to do with we must make ourselves accountable so that children can look to us. Any person that any Black boy that comes into contact with Andre Taylor knows that he's going to have to pull his shit together. That's a fact. That's a fact.
It still got a little bit to do with white privilege. Still got a little bit to do with white privilege.
Okay, speak your piece. Speak your piece, ma'am.
It's not worth a debate over. Because again, we're still saying the same thing. But I do think that when you live in a society, a capitalist society that's designed in a certain way, which is to make the 1% richer and the 99%, and even we have a smaller percent of even the 99 poorer. Even the ideas that you speak about, reading a book and shoot, it's hard to read a book when you have lead poisoning and you live in the projects and you can't even think straight. Like, no, it is. Like, you already dealing with ADHD, which prevents you from being able to sit still, and your mama may or may not be there for whatever causes that she has to be out in the street working 2-3 jobs. And I'm not saying that we didn't have to always do those things, but we're living in a time where even the environment of the pandemic, the stress of society, and so many things are coming at us at one time. Let me tell you something, Megan. You know, I work in communities every day. I'm sure you do. But I'm just saying, I work in communities every day. And I've gone into communities with an attitude that I know y'all can do better. Because see, I was raised in a household where we had a lot of problems. It wasn't easy. Like, shit was real in our home. But still, my parents found a way to do many of the things that you're talking about. And voila, I'm halfway decent. Half. But I go into communities and I see what they're up against. I see how the system, I see how in Florida, where I was during the 2016 presidential election, right? And we were registering people to vote and specifically getting them to sign on to the bill where people coming home from prison, people with felonies would have their right to vote restored. And I walked through those communities, knocked on doors, sat in homes, talked to people, and I saw the level of devastation that was happening. Now, one would say, well, we never had anything, and we lived in slavery, we had all these conditions before, so how did our people do it then? The problem is that we're living in a society where they're also looking at social media and other things that shows that people are, it gives you this superficial lifestyle. And then at the same time, they're living in a place where their life is nothing like what we see. And that's creating a level of mental illness in our communities. We're living with a serious issue of mental illness, and it's real. And as I walk through communities, I thought to myself, this is what came to me. It came to me that I was coming at them from a place of loving judgment. I'm not talking about nobody else. I was coming from a place of loving judgment.
Unpack that.
Recognizing.
Unpack that, sister.
Right, meaning that I believed we can, and I'm still gonna believe that. I'm never going to change my mindset that we can do what we will, that we as a people have all the tools that we need. But I also came into a situation where I found out that the number one contractor for the education system, it might be the United States and not the education system, but the number one contractor or like vendor that we purchase from is sugar. And I recognized that. And then I found out that they were pumping the sugar, because you got to do something with all the sugar, into schools. So now you telling these kids to sit down and read a book, which they should be doing, but they're sitting down to read a book in an environment that already has enough things going on. And they're trying to focus in a society that does not allow for the type of quality living that we have, even in our poorness and everything else, in our privilege. And that's why, Tezlyn, when I say that we have privilege, I don't mean we have money, because listen, I'm with you. They took everything. They ripped me down. They took everything that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And except my family and the things that really matter,
Right.
which took me to be strict to understand what really matters. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I do have the privilege of my own awareness. And what I realize is that there are a lot of people in our community that don't even have their own awareness.
Right, but we also had to get there. So everybody did not have, just for example, I didn't come from a politically conscious family.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come from people that were giving me this information. I had to get there. And just on the reading part, I just want to say on this, one, thank you so much for talking about clean water. I work with Attorney Crump on Flint. And when you talk about a community that has given up, they have said themselves that they have given up on God. So they surely don't believe in any leader. So thank you for bringing that up. But I want to talk about quickly, last week I posted on my Instagram a story that I was so proud to book this story with Clifford Spud Johnson, a friend of mine since 1994, since you're talking about reading and reading a book, who taught men how to read in prison. So when we talk about bad environments, and I understand what you're saying, that it may be hard because of ADHD or because of the environment that they're in or because of, all of the elements that they're in. I think, again, we're all saying the same thing, that even despite those environments, there have been people to not only know how to read, but know how to write their own book. And today he's published 14 books that are available in Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and all over this country. In that environment, in solitary confinement, which I think can destroy. When everybody saw, when they see us, they were so shocked by solitary confinement, which told me you ain't never known nobody to be down, because I don't know what you were so shocked about, because I know plenty folks that have been in solitary confinement and have come out of prison with mental illness. When you talk about him doing 17 years as a first-time nonviolent offender through the 94 crime bill, which is why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm not just talking about it from what I heard, I'm talking about from those I've been down with through that period. So I think, again, we're saying the same thing, that we can get our house in order and have accountability, and we can do all we can do, but we also must challenge people. And I think the voices that do that matter. So when Andre Taylor goes to somebody and say, you can stop this type of lifestyle, I know it because I've lived it. It sends a different message than from somebody who may not be speaking from that experience. I sub in the schools. I teach at the prison. I volunteer in the prison. I sub in the schools, in all Title V schools. And I see a lot of teachers that pacify us, that feel so sorry for us because they don't want to judge us. They don't want to feel like, they're coming from a judgmental space, or they feel that they have more access, so they should give us more passes. But when Andre walks in the room to have that conversation from actually living that lifestyle, it brings a different level of accountability. And that just goes back to my overall point, and then I'll shut up. We all have different spaces that we operate in, and we need the Megans to push people harder. And we need the Tamikas to be able to say, hold on, let me take a step back and let me look at the whole totality, and let me go still challenge white supremacy in this way and challenge our oppressor in this way. And we need the Megans to say, hold on, but you also got to get your shit together at the house too, because before I go out and fight for you, you got to have your shit right. It's kind of like what we do with our kids. When I tell my daughter, if I'm gonna go to the school, you better make damn sure that all of your stuff is in order. Don't have me going to that school and you have turned in your, that's it. We all mothers can understand that. You make sure your paperwork is right. Make sure you've done everything you can do. Make sure that you are found in a position of being correct. And then mama will fight for you, that system that tried to hold her back in the 5th grade, that tried to hold her back in the 3rd grade to that further pushes into the pipeline to prison. See, but when I went and started talking to them folks about that I understood what holding back meant and what it not only would it mean to my child mentally, because being able to tell her that she's not good enough to go because you don't offer a summer school program, but also because I understand the system that you are pushing her into in the school to prison pipeline by constantly holding our kids back. And then they have behavior problems, and now they're in detention, and now they're going to after school detention. And so now in school suspension, you are preparing these kids to do time.
That's right.
But see, it also came to understanding the system, like what Tamika's talking about, but also what Megan's talking about, and making sure that I held Jada accountable. And so doing those things simultaneously is how we move forward. And that's what we're doing now with this conversation, doing things simultaneously. We need Andre to do what he's doing. But when Andre called me, Tez, I need you to such and such, you got it. Ain't no questions asked. When I called Andre to say, hey, I need you to come down here, when we were protesting in Houston, Texas, sis, what time do you need me there? Got on the plane and didn't just come by himself, he brought others. When I say, Tamika, can you get on the phone, sis? Can you do this or that? Megan, hey, I need you to speak some truth to these folks, to these mothers over here that need a little swift kick in their ass a little bit. That's when I call Megan. So we have to understand that we all operate in these spaces. And I think that's overall what the beautiful thing that this panel has done is show what you like to say, Andre, our own geniuses. But being able to call and have an understanding and a respect for each other, that we can speak to different groups in different spaces and make things move. I've had many problems with the Senator Sanders campaign, and I want to say this because I said it earlier, but I have undying respect and loyalty to Senator Nina Turner and Killer Mike. And no matter what I went through with dragging Bernie Sanders, and will continue to drag Bernie Sanders, I have always made a point to say, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders. I'm not talking about Michael Render. I'm not talking about Nina Turner. I'm talking about him. So when we get into these spaces and we understand, hey, I don't have to like everything that they did, but I respect Tamika. I don't have to like the way y'all move, but I respect Tamika. I'm down with Tamika when they try to tear her down and take it all. And I think if we can get that, Andre, which is what you're doing and nobody is doing, bring in so many different voices, different religions, different cultures, different way how we move. We need street folks. We need people that's going to turn on the lights and make the roaches scatter. We need bullies. We need people that can talk like they got some sense and some home training at the table. We need all of that. And we need somebody that may just go out there and say something wild as hell just to spark the conversation. Charlamagne's interview was 18 minutes.
Great.
Very short interview, but was able to be trending on the top 5 to 7 things all day. And that is the beauty of what we bring to the table when we have different voices.
So let me say something. Let me say something real quick. Let me tell you a story. A lot of times when I'm teaching, I kind of tell a story about different cultures for a reason, and you'll understand why in a minute. I say you might see some Asians and the children grow up and the mother is a doctor and the father is a lawyer. And it's like real normal for the child to feel when she grows up, he or she is going to be the same. Or any other culture. You might see it in any other culture. And so to go on to be a lawyer, doctor, or whatever they aspire to do, it's normal. And then our young people, when they look at something like that, is damn near impossible for them. And the problem with that is that we have to start normalizing greatness to our children. Let me say that again. We have to start normalizing greatness to our children. We cannot get down there with the sad stories about all these things. We have to start normalizing greatness. My father, who I love more than anybody, made his transition in 2007, gave me the fundamentals of manhood. And one day he said to me, he said, son, let me tell you what I expect of you. I said, what is that, Dad? He said, as a young Black man, this race of life that you are racing, with all your disadvantages, I expect for you to finish the race. I said, Dad, I could do that. I could do that. Then he said, wait, son, I expect for you to finish first. Now, the genius of my father is that he knew in order for me to accomplish what he wanted for my life, it would take the genius inside of me, making me feel I was capable of to make that happen. He said, I expect you to finish first. So now I got to pull the genius out of myself. So in our conversations with our young people, we are pacifying what white folks have with that. You said that white lady comes in feeling sorry for the children, or white man, whatever. We have pacified our children with white supremacy without even knowing it.
That's
Instead
right.
of letting them realize their greatness, whatever the disadvantages are.
That's right.
Listen,
That's
we are
right.
a people that have overcome more than any people upon the face of this earth.
That's what I'm
There's
saying.
no one that has gone through the atrocities that our people have gone through, and we're still standing.
That's right.
We need to appeal to the greatness in our people, no matter what the conditions are. Bring them on, because we'll overcome that too. And each one of us are examples of that. So we're not just telling them something that we can't show an example of. This is important to our children. And I'm done.
That's right. What you're saying, brother, I tell you, I feel like running this whole time. The Oklahoma Wall Street is a testament to what you're saying. And that was during a very, very hard time. We were in conversations with China to do trade with China. So you can't tell me, we've got homeless children, homeless Black children that get scholarships, full ride scholarships to Yale, Harvard, Princeton. So I cannot continue to allow the conversation to be steered in the direction of we are victims and we are hopeless. We are not. We are more than conquerors, and things have happened to us, and things, and this is what, I guess this is the thing that I just want to get it to a bottleneck at this point. Things will continue to happen unless we make a change. I think that's my point. My point is, I'm not trying to degrade or diminish what has happened. It has been horrible, it has been horrific, and it has really messed us up. It really has. But speaking as someone who has studied psychology for over 8 years, finishing my doctorate degree, I'm telling you that it does not get any better in the future unless we make serious changes in our homes. Because to try to force a morality on people that we feel are devils is foolish. How can you change the morality on the devil? You call them white devils. How can you change the morality on the devil? How can you continue to say, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, don't stop killing us, but you kill yourselves? How can you put a priority on yourself for other people, but you don't do it in your own home? And so what I am doing with the Black Privilege Movement is I am saying to people, listen, let's control what we can control. I can control my mouth. I can control what I listen to. I can control what my children watch. Sit here and tell me that cell phones and this and that, get the damn cell phones away from these badass kids. Take them away. Women work 2 jobs to make sure that their sons have Air Jordan. Stop doing it. Just stop. And he will begin to learn that he's going to have to be able to do more than just sag his pants and wear Jordans. You better start being a class clown, nigga. You better start doing something, because I'm not going to pay for your popularity. You understand? And so that's what I'm saying. And if we all do it, then Tommy won't feel jealous of Nicholas, because Nicholas' mama doing the same shit.
Funny. Can we just laugh at that? You just start being the class clown.
Class clown.
You You better do something because I'm not gonna pay for it. I'm not gonna pay for you so that you can have sex with Monica. You know what I'm saying? No. You're gonna have to get in Monica's pants with the gift of gab. Because I'm not gonna buy. You understand what I'm trying to say? So that's what I'm saying. But if I do it, and Tamika does it, and Tezlyn does it, then that's 3 kids in school that are wearing hand-me-downs instead of 1 kid wearing hand-me-downs. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody has to say, that's enough. I'm not gonna do it anymore because I need you, instead of being on your cell phone on TikTok and YouTube and watching pornography and all kind of shit, what I need you to do is read this book. My mother made me read a book once a week and give her a book report outside of my school. I did that from the time I moved out of her house. Why? Because that was the rules. That was the law in her house. I had to make sure, and just like you said, because my mother was constantly taught, as you can tell, my mother was constantly taught in school, but I was also a straight A student. So yes, I talked all the time. I always got in trouble, but I was backed up with the fact that I was a straight A student, and I was backed up because what I was saying was true. You just didn't like the tone in which I said it in. And so my mother always had my back. And what I'd like for Black people to do is stop making me have to make you justifiable. Be justifiable on your own merit, and then we can say, hey man, you just killed a doctor, you just killed a lawyer, you just killed a regular human being. They don't have a freaking record. They don't have all these other freaking problems, which is what they constantly do. Every time somebody is killed or shot, they always have ammunition because some screwed up shit. And all I'm saying is, can we please lift the standard and say, you know what? I'll back you up. I need you to have the paperwork in order. You know what I'm saying? I need you to have your
standard is lifted. Most people don't, most Black folks ain't killing nobody. We're talking about a very small percentage of people within our communities who are actually committing these heinous acts. Like, this is not, most families are doing what they have to do every day, with or without education, with or without resources, with or without homes. You know, even like you talked about the homeless population, when you think about it, some of them are the most positive and prim and proper people in our society. You know, and that's unfortunate that we have to say that, but I know a lot of homeless people who live in homes every day and they still homeless. They just bounce from place to place and they're not committing heinous acts. We're talking about a very small percentage of our society. And I think what you're saying, Megan, is true, because the reality is that what we see on the TV and on the internet is not the truth about who our people are. It's not the full scope of our communities. Like, you know what I mean? Most of us got a big mama that's keeping things intact within our communities. But I think what has helped me in my leadership, where we have transformed communities. I think about New York City, for instance. When I first came into my leadership, and that's an important thing to say, because there's a difference between when I was a protester, when I was an organizer, and when I came into my leadership, right? When we could actually move people. It was with the crisis management system, which is a program that I work on in New York that had $5 million allotted in the beginning, when we had to fight elected officials for every penny of it, to help employ grassroots folks, including people coming home from prison, people who have felonies, so on and so forth, when we had to get them the employment that they need and the resources that they need to help stop violence in the city. At that time, it was wild in New York. People were killing each other up and down every street. But because of the work that we did, and now we have $30 million being distributed to grassroots groups and people who Mayor Bloomberg, by the way, who folks were all excited about his presidency, but Bloomberg was the one who told me he wouldn't give us a dime to support people who are formerly incarcerated coming home to work with violent young people. We now, under our current mayor, who I still fight, we have $30 million being distributed to these groups. And I say that to say that you know, the way in which we were able to get that done was a level of understanding of where we need to be as our people when we go out, when our groups go out and they talk to our folks on the streets and the communities. They're doing everything y'all are saying. They're not, everything you're saying is a part of the training. We can be what we will. Up, you might erase. You know what I mean? You can accomplish what you will. We're doing that work. But at the same time, we have a level of understanding about where they are as a people and what it is that they've been through, what they've suffered, and their current conditions that helps us go out and talk to other people. When we're speaking, like yesterday, we had a whole conversation with the police commissioner, and we were able to explain to the police commissioner, you can't come here and tell people to wear masks and act like you so concerned about our health when we had diabetes, asthma, heart disease, was homeless and everything else last week. And now all of a sudden you want to beat us up over wearing a mask over the coronavirus. Well, I've been sick and no one came, you know? And so it helps me. It's not that we're putting them in a position of weakness, but we are helping to describe to the American public and to the world what it is that this particular group of people have suffered that helps to explain some of the outrageous shit that we do. And I'm saying shit, Andre, on your live, your panel today. We do some outrageous shit, but there are reasons why some of our people participate in it. So to your point, what I need and what we all need is to be able to say, oh man, we got to have a conversation with Black people today. I got to bring Megan because she's going to call us to our highest self, our highest self. Tezlyn going to rock us spiritually and politically and help us step up. Andre knows how to deal with the men and organize our people. And then Tamika will come in and organize folks to put boots on the ground for what we believe in. But at the same time, have a level of, I'm not going to say compassion because we all have compassion in this conversation, but a level of understanding that we can go out and say to white man so-and-so, system so-and-so, presidential candidate so-and-so, that our people have been dealing with a number of epidemics for way too long. And some of us just ain't well. Let me tell y'all something. If we're going to keep it 100, you know, one of the biggest things I'm dealing with right now is Black people coming to me saying, I'm tired of you asking us to peacefully protest. I'm getting my gun. And next week, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. I'm tired. And you know what? People are telling me I need to go and say to them, that's wrong, it's peaceful, it's this, and king, and this, and that, and the third. And instead of doing that, what I've been saying, and I'm not going to even get into what I've been saying, but I've been using a whole different strategy. But what I realize is that their frustration and passion is calling me to a higher understanding of the depth of pain that they are experiencing. I don't think anybody wants to take someone's life. I don't think that our people are that. We've never been. But it's been taught to us over time. And because of what we're experiencing as a people of just the consistent abuse and the lack of accountability for our abuse, that is why we've gone from 0, walking in the streets, maybe voting and what have you, to 100. Maybe we need to bear arms and take people's lives. And I'm not talking about what Charlemagne said, because I don't know, Tezlyn, if you saw our brother speaking on the news the other night. When
yes.
That's a different, I ain't talking about that. Like, we need guns just like everybody else has them to protect our own communities. But I'm talking about folks who are speaking literally to taking the lives of those who harm our communities with or without permits and license and all the things that Charlemagne was speaking of. Right. And I think what gives us the ability to walk them off of the ledge is being able to understand the depth of the pain.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
That they're experiencing.
Yes. Yes.
And I think what goes into I love the way you said, Tamika, when you came into leadership, you understood there was a different level of responsibility. And so it goes back again to what we're talking about on how we can still be there for each other, but understand that we have different space. We have voices in different spaces. I'll give an example. Attorney Crump is criticized all the time, for being a ambulance chaser, even though people call him. They're always saying he's lost every case, even though he hasn't lost a case yet. People don't understand the difference between a civil attorney versus a state attorney. And because I work with him, people assume that I ride with him on every case. And this is where we start having mature conversations and say, I can be with you on this, but I'm not necessarily with you on this. Let's just use an example. And this ties together in a pretty bold what Megan was saying and what you're saying. The Reed case in Indianapolis, where the brother clearly, obviously has some mental issues, maybe not. We can assume he might not have had mental issues at all. I don't know. But where he went on the joyride with the police, well, how long was it? 10, 15, 20 minutes, taunting the police. I'm not saying that, I don't know if he had the gun, didn't have the gun, what his record was. I'm not getting into that rabbit hole. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been overkill, over so many shots were unnecessary. I'm not even getting into that conversation. What I'm saying is, even though he was an Air Force veteran, and I am an Air Force veteran, because of all of the things that could be used to weaponize, like what Megan was saying, well, he had the gun. They got the picture with him with the gun. You're seeing him say, hey, I'm being a stupid ass, and come on with it. Come on, follow me, chase me. Let's get it on. For my leadership, that wasn't the right case for me. Now, Breonna Taylor, who was in her own house, minding her own business, with her boyfriend that did not have a record, that was legally carrying a firearm, that was defending him and his woman. That's the kind of case that I can say, okay, for me, this is the kind of case that I can support. And it's not that nobody needs to fight for Reed. And the fact that the officer said, hey, it's going to be an open casket, homie, and all that was wrong. It's not that there doesn't need to be somebody there still bringing that to the attention of the public, because it does. Right. But for me, because I understand what it means to get on Fox News, which is most hated by most Black folks, I get it, is a conservative outlet. I have to make sure that when I am getting on and pushing a certain agenda in a conversation, that it goes back to what Megan is talking about and what we were talking about earlier. We're making sure that all these things are in order, so that I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time saying what had happened was, well, it was really this and it was really that. I like things to be clear cut. These people were found in the right. This is what's wrong with this system. But it doesn't mean that somebody still doesn't need to have the conversation about Reed and do what they do in their space. Right. That conversation may not need to be in the space of Fox News or in the space of, national TV, whatever, so I think it just comes down again to understanding that we all have different voices and different spaces, and doing things simultaneously is really how we get there. But I do believe that a lot of these conversations need to be had publicly as well. Some things are, backroom conversations, and some things like this are having these conversations so we can understand the difference between. It was everybody who wasn't surprised behind the Women's March. I mean, that, even though y'all brought millions and millions of people together, it wasn't people that was behind that. So I just think it just goes again. I just keep wanting to say that over and over, that we recognize that both are needed simultaneously. I'm sure, Megan, you get a lot of folks telling you, by you saying hold us accountable, that means you must be fighting for the white folks. That's not what that means. It doesn't mean.
Do it on my page because I don't allow it.
Yeah, right. And
I don't allow it. I'm the auntie, and what I say goes on my page.
That's it. And what I'm the same way with you. I'm FedEx. Once I drop it off, I'm dropping it off. There's no signature required. But what I will say is, it goes back to this, and that was my last point I forgot. When you said at the beginning of the conversation that we need to link up with like minds, that it's not for everybody. When you said, and then when you said you need to, get with your kids and get them straight and have them be in certain groups. Like I told my daughter last night, you need to get around certain friends that have the same kind of parents that you have, that's going to ride, that's going agree with the same type of things I agree with. So I think even in our space, in our organizing space, is having like minds, not necessarily doing everything the same, but understanding that we all have a position to play. And I really think that just comes back to.
Hold on, let me say one thing, Megan.
Sorry.
This is where it comes into play, and I like how you express that because of where you were at with Fox News, how things had to be in order. When I came up here, when my brother was killed, because within that, I don't want systems to think because some folks got a record that somehow I'm not going to step up and protect them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And fight for them. So my brother had just did 22 years in the joint, and he was only home 14 months. And so I remember a news reporter asking me, "Why would you use your brother as the poster child?" I said, "Why not?" I said, "You seem to believe that that it's okay for a police officer to kill somebody because they had a record. Hell, I got a record. I've been in a federal prison. You know what I'm saying? So then everybody out there don't get the same amount of rights because they got a record and somebody else don't got a record. I'm gonna smash you guys. Not only that, I'm gonna let you know, to the least of these." I think there's a scripture that says, "Unto the least of these, my brother." Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna draw from the very bottom. If you kill somebody unjustly, I don't care what the hell they did, we coming for you.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah.
Just to put you on notice out there. If you think law enforcement out there that you can kill somebody, and our community is going to say because they got a record that is okay, you're badly mistaken. Let me just put that on record.
And I want to make sure that wasn't what you thought I was saying for sure.
No.
Because I want to make sure. I just meant that when I have 2 minutes. You on
Fox News.
That's right. When you got 2 minutes. Screen. That's right.
I understand.
Yeah. Just for everybody out there. Yeah.
We got your back.
Everybody out there. When you have 2 minutes in front of 2 million folks and you got 60 seconds to be able to listen, respond, and reply, I can't allow myself, my words, to be weaponized in a way.
Yeah,
that's right.
Where now it becomes like when I got in trouble for saying things about Black folks over immigration, they took that and said I was anti-immigrant, which wasn't the truth. I was just pro-Black. You can be pro-Black and not be anti-anything.
Not anti-anything.
But if I was gonna fall, right, but if I was gonna fall on that sword, I was okay with falling on that sword for Black folks. If I'm gonna fall on the sword, it's gonna be for my own. So I'm okay with that. But when you're on national TV and you only have 60 to 2 minutes to be able to have such a complex conversation, some conversations I hold for this form where we can actually dialogue and you can hear my whole context so that I can explain. So even though I brought up Breonna Taylor on Fox News, I did not necessarily, because I brought her up. I talk about all things Black, but I didn't have to pull from the Reed case necessarily, because in that particular conversation, it wasn't meant for that
Sister,
space.
That's my job. That's Tamika's job. You do yours. We support you. Release your measure over there on those Fox people.
That's exactly
we all working on different streams. That's what I'm talking about.
There are different people that do different things. I almost never, ever. Breonna Taylor is probably, well, let me say, even in the Breonna Taylor case, it's not perfect, right? Because Breonna Taylor, who we know everything that happened was wrong. The police are wrong. People need to be fired. They need to go to jail. The system needs to be completely changed. The no knocks need to be thrown out. All of that. Stand your ground needs to be respected for people other than white folks. All of that. But still, somebody will say to me, but the Negro who they was looking for was there 3 years ago. And so therefore, still, there's something, so we can find a way to like say that maybe she should have never been involved with a dude who was a drug dealer, because we heard that 10 years ago, he was also, I don't know this to be true. I'm just saying what people say.
Right.
Some of us, that's what we do. And our job is to go to you, Tezlyn, and provide you with all the shit you need.
Yeah.
Able, when asked, or if you even bring it up, to say the things you didn't say. And by the way, and shit, let's keep it a buck. It's too much work to be responsible for defending folks all the time and trying to always always like, you know what I mean? Like, we
Can't
like
do it.
with the Millie Rock out here, like, you know, you're constantly trying to.
That's what I'm saying.
That become a lot of weight on you.
It is.
You have to go home and think through every day what's the right way, this and that. But to Andre's point, some of us, we get the messiest part of it, and we got to try to figure out how to bake it up and make it right and then present it to you. Because guess what? I know a lot of white people that's got the same records. They did the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They pulled
Yep,
the same
say that.
thing, and they standing there in the police officer's face telling them, F you can kiss my ass, SMD, you piece of, listen, in New York, their position is that respect goes both ways. And that the reason why you've seen the videos of police officers sitting in people's necks, beating people up over wearing a mask is because when they were approached, there were other issues and the level of disrespect pushed them to that point. But those folks I told you about, those anti-violence people, their position to respond, not what did y'all say, react, but to respond was we deal with the same people with no guns, with no vest, with no particular badge that's so well respected. And somehow we know how to talk to a person that's telling me, suck my so-and-so, kiss my behind, and they don't die. They don't get beat up and completely disregarded and disrespected. So all we're asking, and Tezlyn, I know you say this because I've seen you say it on
Me
TV.
too. Me
I've
too.
seen you say it, is treat me how you treat the Orthodox Jewish community when you go into their community and they having funerals for their loved ones, which they should have. They should have those. I understand it. I'm not saying that they should disrespect social distancing, but I understand the love of a rabbi. You only get a few moments to be able to honor them, and then it's over. The community feels the desire to come out. And then when you come to arrest one or two or to do your social distancing stuff, you're going to have, to enforce social distancing, you're going to have some passionate people that want to scream and holler and say, why are you arresting so-and-so and this and that? I just want you to negotiate and respect them the same way, respect us the same way you do in other communities. I want you to find out, because there was a class going on, or several classes going on in a school in New York where there were 100 kids or 100 members of the Orthodox Jewish community inside of a building at one time, and NYPD had to go there, right? And so the way in which they handled it, you see video of them saying, come on, guys, you can't, you gotta go home, we gotta pull you out, this and the third. But if 100 of us gather, when they approach our communities, they throwing you to the ground, breaking you up, arresting you. And by the way, and I see you, Megan, I'm gonna be quiet. The data is clear. The data that came out of the NYPD and the city itself said that over 90% of those that they were issuing summonses for were people who looked like you and me and all of us on here, and not in the parks downtown where white people were sunbathing and not properly socially distancing. So what we're saying is that, and Tezlyn, I'm over here giving, you know what I'm saying? I'm over here telling you tonight, when you go on there, we ain't saying that Brother Reed was 100% in the right. We ain't saying that Sandra Bland's tail light wasn't out. We're not saying that so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, that Eric Garner wasn't maybe possibly selling cigarettes. We're not saying that. What we're saying is the same tactics that you apply to be able to arrest or de-escalate situations when Sally, Sue, Bob, and whoever else was doing it. We just want the same good police work.
That's it.
When it comes
so sisters, out of respect for all your time, I just want to make sure that everybody is okay.
I have to leave you. I love you, but I have to go.
All right. Well, we've been over 2 hours, guys. So what I want now, to just respect all you guys' time, is for you to shoot out all your social medias. You know what I'm saying? So that people can know if they don't know how to get in contact with you, follow you guys. And again, this has been an incredible pleasure to have all of you here. I've learned a lot from a lot of you. Thank you. I love all of you immensely. And, just keep releasing your measure to this world because we need you. So you guys, please shout out your social medias.
Tamika, go.
I'm Tamika D. Mallory. I got a hood name. I came from the projects. My mama named me Tamika. You know what I'm saying? Tamika, the letter D. So she didn't even give me Tamika Marie. She gave me Tamika D. Mallory. I'm on all social media platforms. Thank y'all so much for having me and having this, Andre. Thank you so much. Your beautiful wife, wherever she is, you tell her that I love and admire her so much. And I am so glad to be a part of this conversation. I just want anybody who watched it today not to say that we were in conflict, because we're not in conflict.
Absolutely not.
We're in coordination.
That's
We're
it.
in love. And I learned there's some things I want to go back and say differently and figure out how to pull y'all into spaces that I'm in, and hopefully you will do the same, because what I know is that Black people are not a monolith. That we're different. We come from different spaces, and I know I'm an exception. I'm not the rule. I know that, and how do we get our exceptionalism to become the rule in our communities? So God bless y'all. I love y'all.
Love you.
We love you.
And don't forget, we're going to take this, once this Corona stuff is over, this will be coming around the country to every city. So be prepared for that, you guys. Go ahead, Megan.
Again, thank you so much, Brother Andre, for putting such a miraculous 2 hours plus time together with my sisters. I probably would have never had this moment, at least not right now. So Tamika, thank you so much for your time and for teaching me and helping me to expand my horizons. Tezlyn, of course, thank you so much for your meshing of the two, if you will, and for helping us to understand. My name is Megan McGlover. I am on Twitter as Megan McGlover, Instagram, Megan McGlover, Facebook, Megan McGlover. My website is meganmcglover.com. You cannot miss me because I don't change my name. My mother named me Megan McGlover, and that's it. It's spelled like Megan, but it's pronounced Megan, okay? And I will correct you. You say Megan, I'm gonna say Megan, okay? So Megan McGlover, I'm on everything. And again, it is my honor to represent a part of our ancestors. That's what we've done. That's what we've done here. We actually have had a conversation in the bunkers. We've had it on the internet, but they had it in the bunkers, because I can guarantee you this same dialogue was happening, 100 years ago, but it just wasn't televised. And so there were some people that were ready to go and some weren't ready to go. They wanted to do it this way. They wanted to do it that way. And we have witnessed that even with all those different ways, a change did come. That's right. So I am so proud of myself. It brings tears to my eyes to think that I have done something to help our people, in this conversation and what it is that we're doing as a people. And so I am here for you, Tamika, whenever you need me, give me a call. Tezlyn, call me whenever you need me. Andre, you already know to call me whenever you need me, because we have got to do this one family at a time, one household at a time, one person at a time.
Well, that was deep. I'm a Florida Supreme Court mediator for the civil and the circuit and the appellate. And I love mediating because it gives you an opportunity to bring people together without always having to insert my opinion to show where we have common ground. And when you say, I love the way you said it, Tamika, we were not in conflict. This is an example of what the collective is and what the collective means and the power of the collective. This was such a perfect balance. I honestly, Andre, was not expecting this at this magnitude. I really wasn't, because to hear our conservative values, meaning I'm not talking about conservative Republican right or left. I'm talking about the things that Big Mama raised us on, and to also have our liberal ideologies also expressed, and the importance of the two, and understanding what it means to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, but also how to make sure that we demand that we have access to the same boots that everybody else does at the same price and with the same quality. This is the example that I hope people can look. This was very long and we could go on, and I hope people watch it from beginning to end, or that you clip it out so that people can get this knowledge. Because the beautiful thing that people were able to see is grown women, and I love you, brother, but mainly it's really important that folks can see grown women can have grown women conversations and be respectful of each other. This was some Erykah Badu, Jill Scott kind of love.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Loving on each other and respecting each other. You can find me at Tezlyn Figaro, cross the T, dot the I in Figaro. But I really appreciate you, sisters. And I love you, brother. You know I love you. But I really think it's so important that Black women are shown in this way, that we can actually, that we are not angry, that we are not divided, that we don't hate on each other, that we're not angry at each other. We can salute each other from a distance. And Angela, I'll just say this before I close. When they had made that hateful comment to try to trigger insecurity in me to feel like I wasn't a part of something. And Angela Rice said, well, sis, we'll do something together one day. And my response to her was, sis, we already doing something together. We don't have to do something on the platform to be together. We're doing something together by using our voices in our own way. And that's what we're doing, the collective pressure. But it is important that we acknowledge each other, and I appreciate it. And shout out to your sister, Linda, say so. I haven't had many conversations with her, but I want to give her a shout out because I've noticed she's been on my Instagram quite a bit lately. And that is deliberate. When people do that and they make a point to go comment and say, I hear you and I see you, I am very humbled by that because I respect the fact that you're respecting my voice and I respect yours. And as women, we must continue to do that. And as men, we must continue to do that. Andre, I love you. I love how you shout us out. I love how you lift us. I love lifting you. Thank you, brother, for allowing us this opportunity. I hope and pray you continue to do this around the country because this is so necessary to our community and to the betterment of us all.
Amen. I love all of you guys. I'm very honored, as I said earlier, just to be in the room. You know, when a lot of times men don't understand the conversations that women be having amongst themselves, and to just really have an opportunity to be in the room is amazing. You know, we talking about want to be a fly on the wall when your sister bring all her friends over and what they be talking about. So to be able to be here and you guys allow me to be here, I just want to thank you guys for that. My Instagram is @RealGorgeousDre on Instagram, and I'm Andre L. Taylor on Yahoo. And what am I on Twitter? I think @RealGorgeousDre as well on Twitter. I don't really even use my Twitter, but at any rate, I thank you. I can't wait for this corona is over so that we can go around the country and you can see us in person. We can embrace you. We can love on you. Thank you so much to everybody involved. Love all of you. Peace.
Love you guys. Blessings.
Now what do? We just cancel out of this thing here?
Yeah, you